It was a Friday night, and outside, the world was a blur of white. A monster snowstorm had descended, burying our small town and trapping us indoors. My parents, as they did every so often, had gone away for the weekend, leaving my two younger brothers, my older sister, and me in the care of our Uncle Ron. He was a kind man, single his whole life but with a deep fondness for kids, and he happily settled in to watch us. That night, with the wind howling outside and the snow piling up against the windows, we decided to put on a movie. My sister, the oldest by 3 years, chose Titanic, a choice we all secretly loved but would never admit to. The night felt cozy and safe. I can still remember the soft glow of the television against the darkness of the living room and the scent of popcorn filling the air. About an hour into the movie, the power flickered off briefly. A collective groan filled the room. The lights came back on a moment later, and we had to painstakingly reset the VCR to find our spot. Uncle Ron, who had a habit of falling asleep to movies, was already snoring softly in his armchair. We let him be, all of us too engrossed in the film. It was the part where Rose, with a fiery resolve, was running through the ship with an axe to save Jack. Just as the suspense was building on screen, my younger brother burst back into the room from the hallway. He'd gone to the bathroom and, for some reason known only to him, had wandered outside for a quick peek at the storm. Now, his face was pale, his eyes wide. "You guys have to see this," he stammered. Craving a break from the movie's drama, my other brother and I ran to the back door to see what he was talking about. Our sister, however, stayed behind, wisely sensing something wasn't right. What we saw made our blood run cold. In the freshly fallen snow, a set of footprints led from the back door to a window of our house and then turned back toward the yard, disappearing into the dark woods beyond. My brother, with a shudder, said he'd heard the doorknob turn. It was the moment the reality of the situation sunk in. My sister, who had come to the doorway to see what the commotion was about, let out a sharp gasp and ran back inside, freaking out. My brothers and I, fueled by a morbid curiosity and a foolish sense of bravery, were more excited than scared. We convinced our sister that we were just going to take a quick look and that we would stay together. Against her better judgment, she let us go. We put on our coats and boots and, with a silent understanding, stepped out into the storm. We followed the footprints as they were quickly being filled in by the falling snow. The deeper into the woods we went, the more pronounced the footprints became. It was as if the person who made them was sinking deeper with each step. We were following those footprints for what felt like an eternity, until we finally saw where they were leading: a small, dilapidated cabin, literally tucked away in the woods. There were no lights on inside, but the footprints led right to the front door. We didn't dare go up to it. Instead, we crept over to the closest window to peer inside. It was too dark to see anything, but we noticed it wasn't a glass window, it was just a screen. As we stood there, we heard two loud thumps from inside the cabin, followed by the sound of something sliding across the floor. We couldn't see what had caused the sound. Suddenly, one of my brothers screamed and pointed behind us. We turned to see a head poking out from another window of the cabin, but it was so dark all we could see was blackness. The head was gone as quickly as it appeared, and then the front door to the cabin burst open. We all screamed and ran for our lives, stumbling through the deep snow, retracing our steps back to the house. We never looked back. The next day, we tried taking our Uncle Ron on a hike to the cabin, but we couldn't find it. The creepiest thing is, we still live in the same house, and after all these years, we've never come across that cabin again. In fact, we can't even find it on maps or Google Earth. If it weren't for the fact that I was with my two brothers, I would question if this ever even happened. My two friends, whom I'll call S and J, and I went on a camping trip near Blue Mountain National Park. We set up our tents near a small, secluded pond. Our main goal was to get away from it all, crack open a few beers, and just chill with some music. As the sun began to set, casting an orange glow on the pond water, I was on my second Budweiser, laughing with S and J, when I saw S reach over and turn the music all the way down. He shushed us and pointed out to the pond. "Do you guys see that?" he whispered. Jay and I looked out at the water, but the only thing we could see was the reflection of the campfire. I went into my tent to get my flashlight. As I came out, S told me not to turn it on, but I ignored him. I aimed the beam at the pond, but the light didn't reveal anyone or anything. However, we all heard it, the unmistakable sound of water being pushed, as if someone or something were walking through it. I turned off the flashlight immediately, My heart pounding in my chest. We were all freaked out. I told S to shut off the speakers completely. We sat in our chairs in complete silence, not saying much, just listening to the sounds of the woods. An hour passed, and nothing happened. We eventually grew more comfortable and went back to our conversation. Around midnight, we all decided to call it a night. I went to my tent, and S and J went to the tent they'd be sharing. Now that I was alone with my thoughts, however, my mind went back to the sound of the water. My sense of hearing was heightened, and I was in a state of alert. I lay there, listening to the sounds of the woods. Then I heard it, a faint, almost imperceptible sound coming from the woods. I sat up, concentrating, trying to confirm if it was just an animal or something else. There was the sound again, much closer now. It was a foot hitting the ground, undeniable. I heard another footstep, and this time it was clear that someone or something was sneaking around our campsite. Then, one final footstep. Right outside my tent, I started to text S, but I was only able to type out the words, "There's something," before a gut-wrenching, blood-curdling scream pierced through the walls of the tent. I couldn't tell if it was the scream of a man or a woman. It was a deep, guttural sound that lasted for about 5 seconds before it was replaced by silence. My heart was pounding in my chest. I didn't know if I should get out, call for my friends, or stay silent. I texted S again, "Dude, we have to run." He responded immediately, "What was that?" I didn't answer right away. I was trying to think of what to do. Then, he texted me again, "The coast is clear. Run for the car." I grabbed the keys from my bag, unzipped the tent, and sprinted to the car, which was luckily only about 30 seconds away. I got in the car and waited for S and J. They were both in the car a minute later. We stayed in the car all night, and went back the next morning for our stuff, which was all still there. We still have no idea who or what that thing was at our campsite that night. I'm just happy we got out okay. I'm a freelance photographer and video editor. A few years ago, I found myself walking through a dense forest during a light drizzle. I had my backpack with me, filled with a spare pair of pants, a flashlight, a tripod, and my camera. I was recording footage of the forest and a river during the rain, hoping to snag some pictures as well. It was a beautiful, peaceful day, and I was completely lost in the moment. I didn't realize how far I had gone until I looked up and couldn't find my car. I spent the next hour in a state of panic. I was soaked, stressed, and screaming in anger at myself for being so careless. I just wanted to find the car and go home. That's when I started to pick up on noises around me. It wasn't a constant sound, but every few minutes I would hear the same noise, a footstep, just on a different side of me. I convinced myself it was a bear, which was terrifying in its own right. I slowed down to quiet my own footsteps so I could hear where the other footsteps were. When I did, I turned my head as quickly as possible in that direction and saw a flash of a person's body jumping behind a tree. Instead of calling out or confronting them, I did what I still think was the smart thing. I walked away fast, playing it off like I hadn't seen them. It was starting to get darker, and the rain was still coming down lightly, but my heart was racing faster than ever. I checked my phone every 10 seconds and finally got 1 bar of service. I stopped walking, wiped the screen of rainwater, and opened my Maps app. I let out a sigh of relief. The nearest road was very close. I was about to start walking when I heard footsteps closing in on me from behind. I turned and spotted the person again. It was a man, and I know that in and of itself doesn't sound so disturbing, just sketchy, but I'm telling you, the sight was horrifying. I could only see the man briefly before he jumped behind a tree again, as if he thought I couldn't see him. He looked huge, really tall, with an average build, maybe a little overweight. He was wearing jeans and a dark blue jacket with the hood up, half zipped down, exposing a white shirt underneath. He also had on glasses, but that's all I got of his face. He was hiding behind a tree, maybe 15 feet away. Over the sound of millions of raindrops, I heard the final footsteps. I ran. I didn't care anymore. I was borderline having a panic attack. I continued running until I found the road and ran for what felt like miles. I didn't stop until I thought there was no chance of him catching up to me. I continued walking until I finally hitched a ride from a passing car. I didn't bother mentioning what happened to the driver. I just told him I got lost. He went on his way as I got into my car and drove the half-hour trip back home. I'll never forget that day.